G'day guys, one of the most popular complaints or the most common complaints that I see people make about Games Workshop online is them talking about how everything that GW do is just profit seeking. All they're doing is they're making these broken rules so that people run out and buy the models, and then they're going to nerf the rules, and people complain about this. In today's video, I'm going to make a case for why GW's insatiable lust for profit is actually a really good thing for Warhammer. It's a good thing for tournaments, it's a good thing for hobbyists, and it's just in general an amazing source of what makes Games Workshop and what makes Warhammer so amazing. So with that being said, we're just going to jump straight into the video.
Welcome to the Black God.
G'day guys, I've got a nice short quick opinion piece that I wanted to share with you guys because there's some stuff that's been mentioned online that I thoroughly disagree with, and it's a bit of a hot take, it's a bit of an interesting perspective, so I wanted to share that with you guys here and then get a conversation going in the comments down below, because I imagine that many of you are probably going to think I'm wrong. Hopefully if you listen through you'll at least see the perspective I'm coming from and we can have an interesting conversation in the comments. But basically the topic, I guess, is that a lot of the decisions that Games Workshop make are quite unpopular. And the reason that they're unpopular is because they appear to be money grabs. Like they'll release new models with OP rules so that they can sell a whole ton of those new models, and then they'll nerf them after the fact, and then it leaves people with these models that are not competitively viable. And that upsets people, right? Or other things like a new codex will come out, it'll be OP so that it'll sell. Those sorts of decisions that GW make that are bad for game balance and bad for the players who invest in them. And then people complain about that and say that the GW's price gouging is ruining Warhammer 40k. And I heard somebody, the comment that sparked this video was somebody saying, it was in one of my previous videos, somebody was talking about how, the price gouging and the profiteering of GW is going to ruin Warhammer 40k. And that's the point that I thoroughly disagree with. Now, he was saying, this guy was basically saying that profiteering ruins everything it touches. I think that was the comment, and that's the part that I disagree with, because I actually think that their profiteering, whilst it's inconvenient and it's annoying, I think it's a necessary evil. And the reason that I think this is because if GW weren't doing this, they wouldn't have the incentive structure to continue to produce all of the sick shit that they do that we love, right? Like, why would they invest all of the money in designing new sculpts and new artwork and coming up with new lore and new books and everything to generate the narrative and generate the models that they can then go through the process of sculpting and designing and then working out how they're all going to fit on a sprue and just coming up with all this shit and then coming up with rules and all this, like, that's a huge undertaking, right? It is actually a huge, I know a lot of people give GW shit for being, overly priced and expensive and blah, blah, blah. But it's like they do a fucking shitload of work on their side. And then that facilitates us playing the game that we know and love. If they weren't profit driven, and if they were just doing things for the community because out of love, well, they wouldn't be generating the profits required to grow at the pace that they're growing, and they wouldn't be able to bring us a fucking Angron Primarch, or they wouldn't have been able to bring us the 8-bound, because they wouldn't have the financial incentive and the financial backing to actually undergo these projects. The process of sculpting an Angron model would have been, that's huge. Hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. Because they've got to get the designers, they've got to get the artwork, they've got to get the lore, they've got to do multiple iterations of it until it's perfect. or it's a huge process. So, and then they've got to do multiple different versions of his rules and play test them and brainstorm, come up with sick ideas for him. It's a huge process. That would require them to have already made massive amounts of profit and have the incentive to do so, because doing so is going to generate them even more profit. So if we want to complain about their incentive structure and the way that they do things for being profiteering, we're actually kind of complaining about the thing that makes them good. The thing that makes Games Workshop so good is their profiteering. So I just wanted to push back a little bit on that opinion online that GW releasing OP minis and then nerfing them. I get it. It is frustrating, right? It really fucking is. And I totally understand why people feel, opposed to it on an instinctive level. But I think when you pay a little bit more attention and you look a little deeper, you realize that it's actually a necessary evil, and that if GW didn't do this, they wouldn't be generating the same level of profits. Sure, they could generate profits in other ways, other less frustrating ways. But basically anything that you do to slow down their rate of profit is going to slow down their rate of growth, slow down the rate of development. And I know there's a lot of people out there that would argue that slowing down the rate of change is a good thing. I actually just released a video called The Conservative Argument for Warhammer 40k, which was basically arguing that the rate of releases is too fast, the rate of change in the rules is too fast, and they need to slow it down, which you can absolutely make that argument. But the point is we've been waiting like 15, 16 years, most of us, some of us even longer. We've been waiting for a fucking World Eaters Codex, There's people out there that are waiting for a Dark Mechanicus Codex. There's people that are out there that have been waiting for a Squats Codex for fucking 20 years, Like, if we slow down the rate, it's just going to slow down, the rate in which we're going to get a Fulgrim model, Like, there's Emperor's Children players out there that want a Fulgrim model. They want an Emperor's Children Codex. And, we know they're going to get one. There's no way that they would release World Eaters, Thousand Sons, Death Guard, and then just never release Emperor's Children. They will do it. And if we want to get there, the fastest way to get there is to incentivize GW via profit. Tell them, keep releasing shit, because every time you release something new, you make bank. Keep, changing the rules and updating things as fast as you can, because when you do that, you make bank. Make the new shit OP, everyone's going to run out and buy it, you're going to make a fuck ton of profit, then you can nerf it later, which is the appropriate thing to do, because you can't just leave it as OP. So you nerf it later, and now the competitive scene is balanced again, and therefore, it's reasonable, and it's, tournaments are, under control. But that new shit, if you make it OP, people will buy it, and that incentivizes them to continue to produce new content. And that's exactly what we want to see. We don't want to just see a stalemate where we go through, years without new codexes like we used to. Like it used to be, you get to like 2 codexes a year was the old standard. So sometimes it would take 3 or 4 years before your army got an update, or even longer, And that's just grueling, especially if you're hoping for something, new and exciting, like say an Emperor's Children Codex. So I just wanted to push back on that. I understand the frustration, and I'm 100% on board with you that, it's frustrating when a new codex comes out and it's just straight up OP, it's overpowered as fuck, and it just goes in and, upsets the tournament scene. Your mate brings it, you can't beat them, this new codex is fucked. But I think it's a necessary evil, and I think we're going to see a lot of people push back on the World Eaters for being OP. I get the strong feeling that, like, on release, they're going to be very, very powerful, and I've got some videos lined up on some of the particular combos that I can see on the horizon that are going to be absolutely savage and absolutely brutal. So I can see that, on release, they're probably going to have people saying that they're too powerful and they need the Votann treatment. There'll be tournaments that might even potentially ban them until the balanced data slate comes through and fixes them up. So I'm seeing that that's probably going to happen, and I just wanted to get ahead of the curve and outline my thoughts in that the World Eaters Codex should be overpowered on release. That's a good thing, and if you want to capitalize on it, go out, buy the World Eaters on release. Yes, they will eventually get nerfed, but still, go buy them, ride that wave, have a shit ton of fun while you do it, and then when they get nerfed, you'll be in the same boat as everybody else, so don't complain. Just be like, yep, cool, now it's my turn to be nerfed, that's fine. Now I'm balanced with everybody else, that's fine. And that model will give GW the incentive, a financial incentive, to continue to progress through and develop new things. That's really important, and that's how we've gotten the World Eaters Codex. We wouldn't have got one if they didn't have that incentive structure. Now, last but not least, there are some alternative incentive structures that could be implemented that would, result in the same thing. Like there could be some kind of community-based incentive structure. There's all kinds of different, like political and philosophical incentive structures out there. But the world that we live in is a capitalist setup. That's the world we live in. And everything ultimately boils down to profit, So having that incentive structure built into the system is generating massive amounts of exciting innovation for us, the players. So the profiteering is a good thing. The capitalist model is generating us what we want, and it's amazing. World Eaters Codex is amazing. The Angron, the 8-bound, all this new exciting stuff is just fantastic. And we owe it to this profiteering model. So the profiteering model is not the bad guy, it's actually the hero. It's the hero of the story. So I just wanted to push back on that, share my thoughts, and then get a conversation going in the comments below. Because I imagine there's plenty of people listening to this that are completely arse mad right now, that completely disagree with everything I just said, and think that maybe it's a good short-term strategy, but maybe in the long-term strategy they're alienating their players. That's one valid sort of rebuttal. So let's get a conversation going in the comments below. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
Blood to the Black God!